for giving us an opportunity to present our view of the world, or should I say, our view of the sustainable solution to plastics. Um, Plastics, like I said in my opening remarks, is not the villain, and it shall never be the villain, unfortunately. It is the treatment of plastics, it's the collection and disposal, and the entire plastic life cycle that we don't comprehend properly. That has led us to take knee-jerk reactions about banning plastic and not using plastic and giving plastic the kind of bad name that it has today. Plastic's a bad word. Uh, Educated people, learned people, uh, they're all a part of this propaganda that believes that plastics is the worst thing that's ever happened to the planet. I'd like to see this planet without plastic. Okay, whether it is to do with construction, whether it's to do with science, defense, engineering, the auto sector, consumer sector, agriculture, science and technology, IT, medical. I mean, all these industries are where they are today because of the advent of plastics. And what really surprises me is that, in spite of that, and in spite of the fact that plastic touches our lives in millions of ways every day, directly and indirectly, we still don't recognize the importance and the relevance of plastics in our lives. Um, and, uh, and we don't work towards finding solutions. We instead of finding a solution to the problem, we find ways and means to get rid of one of the most important building blocks for the planet. What I'm going to take you through in our presentation is some basic facts about plastic, and hopefully a solution that we have as HPL that can address to some extent uh, some of the problems that single-use plastics face today. So with that, I request you to take it to the next slide, please. In this conference, I think everyone has a lot to do with plastics, and so, but just some semantics out there. This is the global plastic industry in numbers, the specialty plastics, the number of disposable plastic bags used annually, single-use plastics. What is the percentage of the single-use plastics? What is the global plastics market, and what is the consumption and purchase of plastic? Now, what this slide essentially tells you is how relevant plastics are and how important plastics are. And it's not something we can do away with. Uh, some people refer to it as a necessary evil. I just refer to it as a necessity and a vital necessity. Next, please. Again, the regional distribution of plastic. We have NAFTA clearly at a very high level. Asia, China is the largest consumer, followed by Europe, followed by NAFTA, followed by rest of Asia, Middle East, and Latin America. These are all semantics, and these are numbers that I think are known to all. But what's important, if you see here, is that close to 50%, okay, of plastic consumption will be in just China and the Indian subcontinent and parts of Asia. So you can see how that is growing immensely, whether it's consumption or it's manufacturing. You can see the shift that is happening and will continue to happen towards towards Asia. Although we're clearly not at the levels of consumption per capita of Europe and America and so on. I think that's in the next slide, which you'll be able to see the per capita consumption. So, we're at a very basic level, okay, of 11 kgs per capita, when US is at 109, and, Europe is at 65, and even countries like Brazil are higher than us, and China. So, who have been typically the consumers of plastics, and therefore who are the ones who have actually misused the plastic, and who are the ones who have disposed it irresponsibly? Is not countries like India. Certainly, I don't need to say which other countries who've done it, but it's certainly not India. And we have to understand from the other developed world and see what are the mistakes that they made, and learn from those mistakes, and hopefully try and find solutions to address some of the mistakes they made. Simply banning plastics is not going to be a solution. Next, please. If you look at the Indian plastics industry, I mean, it's a fast growing industry. We're at a 12% growth rate. Okay. And you can see the potential this industry has. And I don't need to read all the figures out to you, but clearly, you can see that our exports are going to double. You can see that our consumption is going to almost double. Okay. You can see the number of manufacturing units and plastic processing plants is growing and is developing. Okay. We're in our consumption patterns, we're going to be the top five in the world. Okay. So there is this, the plastics, the point I'm trying to make here is plastics is an integral part and is a very important industry for the Indian economy, like it is for any other economy. Next, please. I mean, this is we're the plastics conference, so I think everyone knows where plastic is. Construction, healthcare, packaging, sports, electronic. I've already touched upon this. That plastics it touches us in so many ways. In many ways we don't realize, and in some ways very obviously. But yet we look at plastic with disdain, and we look at plastic with complete abhorrence that this is something that needs to be done away with. I don't see how the world would exist without it, to be very honest. And I can't express enough the importance of plastics in the world today. Next, please. Again, broken up by application areas, packaging is the largest consumer of plastics. And then there's infrastructure and auto and agriculture and others. So these figures are dated, and I'm sure they're as of 2013. And I'm sure that they may have gone through some tweaking, and they may have metamorphosized into different percentages. But by and large, the point here is that it's prevalent in our day-to-day life, and it will be prevalent in our day-to-day life going forward. There's nothing taking away from that. Next, please. Next, please. So if you look at the pollution caused by plastic, okay, you have billions of tons of plastic waste generated at a global level. Okay, you have thousands of tons of plastic generated every day in India. Okay, and close nearly 20 billion tons of pounds of plastic that end up in the ocean. Now, the fact that plastic waste is generated, the waste is a natural byproduct of the product itself. I mean, there has to be waste. If there's going to be single-use plastic or even multiple-use plastic, there will be a life to it, and it will get wasted, and it will need to be thrown away or disposed of. It's a question of how we dispose it. If you're going to be irresponsible and throw it in the oceans, uh, it will end up killing marine life. If we're going to litter the roads and the fields and our countryside, it's going to kill the agricultural life and other factors that come into contact with it. Okay, it's a phenomenon. It's a situation that needs to be addressed. It's not a problem. It's not a pandemic. It is. It's something which needs to be addressed. It's something which needs to be looked at maturely, and it's something which needs the right solution, and the right way to take it forward is to make sure that you find sustainable solutions as to what you can do with plastic waste. Forward, please. So, like I have touched upon this, the major issues are disposal and waste management. I mean, in a country like ours, where plastic just gets thrown in people, and the waste management is linked predominantly to the rag pickers in urban India. Um, in rural India. In urban India, you have pockets where there's recycling and pockets of waste segregation, and but those are few and far between. And where I know they're done more at a private level and at a society level or a particular group level, they're not something that is being provided pan India as a system. The other issues are, of course, plastic doesn't degrade. It takes hundreds of years for it to go back for degradation. Okay, and there are health and safety aspects linked to plastic because you just can't simply burn plastic. Okay, I mean people burn plastic. But it can be harmful for humans. Okay, so you simply can't. It will burn, but it will not. It isn't wood and it isn't paper. Okay, that is not going to be harmful. And wood and paper, the soot coming out of wood and paper can be harmful too. But plastics is a lot more harmful to burn than anything else. Next, please. So, I mean, these are solutions that we have, and I think some of them are knee jerk. Okay, that where and a lot of them are just on the surface and superficial. They don't really address the major issue at hand. Okay, but yeah, you have reducing the consumption of unnecessary plastics, so ban single-use plastics and so on. Recycling of discarded plastics. But in India, we don't see how many recycling plants there are and how many plastics are actually getting recycled. Then you have this plastic waste to energy, and again, this again is a good initiative, but I don't know how many of these are actually happening and what are the investments in this area. Landfills, yes, landfills. They're a dime a dozen. You can see a lot of landfills, but is that a solution? It's not a long-term solution. And the extended producer's responsibility. Yes, this is a very good initiative and an initiative that some of the responsible majors and the larger companies and the more responsible companies are actually following. And this is good. This will have a longer term effect. But how much of it actually percolates down at an urban level and how much of it reaches the rural level, okay, is something that still needs a lot of work to be done on. Okay, so I'm not sure that's the only way forward. There are other solutions, I'm sure, which we will share with you. Next, please. Yeah, so then the states that have completely used the ban of plastic, who've actually banned plastic bags. So the blue is where they've been banned. Okay, but then you've seen with this COVID-19, I would have thought there'd be some resurgence in the use of single use plastic, because everybody wants to protect themselves from multiple use plastic because they don't want to touch, and the bacteria and virus could travel from one person to the other through multiple use plastics and so on. And we are seeing a resurgence in single use plastic, but clearly not in the same order of magnitude as one had expected. Um and when you say plastic bags are banned and plastic, are they really completely banned, or is that something that is circumvented and solutions are found by both manufacturers and consumers? So we make laws. We made a law to ban plastics, but it's not really effective because plastic bags are still being produced. The micron may change, or the distribution may change. But at the end of the day, plastic bags are still being produced in spite of the ban. And enforcement is not so easy because for obvious reasons. Next, please. Correct. I mean, this is something I can't agree with more. Okay. Uh, Blame plastic pollution. Don't blame plastic. Okay, because plastic is not the culprit. Next, please. I think we all know the benefits of plastic. Okay, and I don't need to belabor that point because we are sitting in a plastics forum here, and everyone knows that plastics is a solution that is irreplaceable. Really. Next, please. I mean, if you were to compare the advantages and disadvantages of plastic versus paper, glass, and metals, you'd see where we stand with plastic. And in terms of consumption of energy, water, versatility, resistance, cost, and where how plastic stacks up in terms of advantages. Um, and if you didn't have plastic, and if you were to still resort to paper, glass, and metals, as we did before plastic, I'd like to see an image of the planet and see what it would look like. Because plastics is, I think, saved the planet in a lot of ways. A lot of people are going to disagree with this because they think plastic has polluted the oceans and plastic has ended up in the sewage. Plastic has killed livestock. It's damaged agriculture and so on and so forth, and clogged fields and so on. But I think that's a rather myopic view of the world. And if you were to see and go back to a time where plastic were to be compared with whatever other materials of construction were used in the past for everything, the I don't think the world would have developed to the level that it has now. Next, please. Next, please. So what? This is where we come in, and so what we think is a solution. It doesn't cover the entire spectrum of plastic, but it certainly covers single-use plastic to a very large extent, where the oxo-biodegradation degradation of plastics, okay, where the addition of an additive, okay, uh, will, in the presence of oxygen, light, and at a certain temperature, will convert over a period of time, depending on the dosage and the product, the plastic into biomass, okay, as part of the biological cycle. Which means that in countries like ours, where littering and is something that we can't get over, and plastic finds itself on the roadside, and it finds itself in places there that the rest of the world has systems to collect. But in our country, where it finds itself on everywhere on the streets and the roadsides and sewage and everywhere else, if there were to be a solution, which I think there is, which oxo biodegrades, where nobody has to do anything to that plastic bag, it just has to lie around, okay, and in the presence of light and a certain temperature and oxygen, it will oxo biodegrade. So there is no infrastructure required except for our habit of littering. Next, please. So waste management is about collection. Okay, we need to follow the route of collection. Then it has to be segregation, and then it has to be recycling. Okay, and there is a whole infrastructure required for it. All right. What this, like I said, the oxo biodegradable solution is, it doesn't require any infrastructure. It only needs to get incorporated at the time of manufacture of the single-use plastic, or the plastic bag, or the plastic film, or the glass, or the plate, or a cutlery, or a toothpick, or a bottle. It needs to get incorporated at that stage, and after that, nature takes over. Next, please. So this is the representation of the process. It's degradation by oxidation, and then biodegradation by microorganisms, and it eventually goes into become biomass. Okay. Next, please. So, like I said, I mean, this is a technology which doesn't alter anything for the manufacturers and processors. Okay, it doesn't impact the life of the plastic, but the original properties of the plastic. It's okay, and conventional plastic, which is used for packaging and so on, finds a solution which is cost effective and doesn't involve infrastructural investments. Next, please. Now, these are conventional methods, okay, of plastics that where the oxo-biodegradable additive is used. And in landfills, the layers that are exposed to oxygen, UV light, and temperature, you can have biodegradability. Again, for PP and PE, it could take between 1 and 3 years, and for polystyrene, it could take 3 to 5 years. That's a huge improvement compared to the fact that plastic doesn't degrade for hundreds and thousands of years. Okay. Plastics with the oxo-biodegradable additive can be recycled. I mean, it's not that once you put the additive into it, that the plastic is not recyclable. Okay. And it's natural. It's not a process which needs any infrastructure, like I've repeatedly said. Next, please. Again, the kind of products where plastic OBA can go in is into PE films. Next. All kinds of bags, all kinds of single-use plastic. Currently, what has been banned, okay, but is still being used in protective packaging, containers, in PPEs, shoe covers, plastic gloves, all the things that have saved the planet during this pandemic, okay, can actually be oxo-biodegradable if you added this. Next. These are just applications of where the oxo-biodegradable additive can go, and based on its dosage and the polymer in which it's employed, will oxo-biodegrade between 1 and 5 years. Next, please. Next. So I will sum it up. That plastics is not the problem, ladies and gentlemen. The problem is how we handle our plastic waste. We need to be more responsible. We need to find sustainable solutions. The oxo-biodegradable additive is a solution. Is a solution that has worked and is proven. It's a solution that is not a quick fix, because it still takes 1 to 5 years. But it's a solution. If we had started incorporating the oxo-biodegradable additive 5 years ago, we'd have the Swachh Bharat mission would actually be showing some results. I think it's time we all took cognizance of solutions that are available. We took cognizance and of the fact that we are not going to have a life without plastic. Banning plastic is not a solution. We need to work towards ensuring that we find ways and means to circumvent the banning of plastic by employing solutions and innovation, okay, which will bring sustainability to our planet, sustainability to the earth, sustainability to the country, to businesses, and our community at large. I thank you all very much for listening to this patiently, and at some point, if there are questions, I'll be happy to answer. Thank you very much.